Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A Windsor landlord is out thousands of dollars because his tenants haven't paid in months. And with no foreseeable outcome, he wants the process to change. Plus, Prime Minister Trudeau was in the city today to rally some support for a new bill to protect striking workers. And it's March 14th today, better known as National Pie Day. A local restaurant is serving up slices, not just to celebrate Einstein's birthday, but for a good cause. A Windsor landlord says his tenants haven't paid rent in months. But until the case is heard at a tribunal, there's not much he can do. The CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa reports.
And we live right next door to them.
Michael Portman's tenants live a wall away. It's a little too close for comfort, seeing as he's been trying to evict them for the last 8 months. The duplex owner claims that his tenants haven't paid their $1,800 monthly rent since July 2023. He says he's owed more than $14,000 total and that there's thousands of dollars in damages to the unit. But until he gets a hearing at the Landlord and Tenant Board, his hands are tied.
I don't want anything to do with being a landlord after this experience. When I do finally get a settlement with this case, I'd like to sell the house and be rid of the whole hassle.
The tenants did not want to speak on the record with CBC News, but said that they disagree with the claims their landlord has made. Portman says that since filing in July, he's had 2 hearing dates, one in January that he says the tenants couldn't make, and then one in February, but the board never got to the case.
The Landlord and Tenant Board has limited resources to work with and no real way to expand their operations.
A former lawyer who worked on landlord and tenant cases in Windsor says the board is in disarray, but that there's ways to make the process more efficient.
Take the type of case that not paying the rent is. It's a very simple, straightforward thing. I don't even think you really need a hearing for those.
In an email, Windsor-Tecumseh MPP Andrew Dowie says he shares the frustration with this process and that he's brought concerns to the Attorney General, which oversees the board. A spokesperson for the LTB told CBC News in an email that it expects to make real progress this year. As of March last year, there was more than 53,000 backlogged cases. The board says that it has more streamlined processes, given adjudicators more training, and hired more adjudicators to ease the caseload. As for Portman, it's just a waiting game.
I've been dealing with a lot of stress.
Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is wrapping up a visit to Windsor today. His appearance focused on rallying some support for a new bill to ban replacement workers. The CBC's Chris Ensing has more.
Hello, 444. Hello, 200.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau today in Windsor, standing inside Unifor Hall, pitching members on his government's actions for unions, focusing on a new bill that will ban federally regulated companies from hiring replacement workers during strikes.
This is about making sure that you can get the best deals at the bargaining table.
The bill is in committee right now, supported by the NDP and also by the Conservatives, a party that Trudeau focused on contrasting during his campaign-style rally.
Because we know that a leopard can't change its spots. Pierre Poilievre was part of the government that brought in 525 and 377.
One would have forced labor unions to disclose how they spend their money. The other paved the way for unionized workers to opt out of paying dues. Both repealed when Trudeau came into power.
And that's part of the choice Canadians are going to be able to take in the next election.
Following Trudeau's speech, a familiar former union leader pressed him on those changes.
And all I want to say to you, Mr. Trudeau, is that the legislation is in the House. We would ask you to expedite that legislation.
It's a push supported by the NDP because of current procedures. The bill could take 2 years to come into effect at its current pace, pushing it past the next federal election.
We know how important it is to solve for this housing crisis.
Trudeau also talked housing, his government denying Windsor City Council's application for tens of millions of dollars because they wouldn't allow fourplexes to be built on any residential lot. The Prime Minister repeated his government's call for council to be more ambitious.
And that program, the Housing Accelerator, was designed for cities that were ambitious about changing the way housing was built. We were really pleased recently to sign a housing accelerator agreement with Tecumseh, worth $4.4 million because Tecumseh stepped up with an ambitious vision. The City of Windsor chose to go a different way, and therefore there's no housing accelerator funding for them, but we will continue to work with them on multiple programs. And if the City of Windsor decides to be more ambitious about its housing goals, we're always there to talk.
Chris Hensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor police say an 87-year-old woman has died after being struck by a vehicle on Monday. Police said earlier this week she was sent to hospital with serious injuries. This happening on McNorton Street, that's near Heron Terrace Retirement Home in the East End. The identity of the woman has not been released. Police have also not responded to requests about whether they're looking for a suspect or if charges have been laid. Now, workers at an auto assembly plant in Windsor West have ratified a new deal. Unifor Local 444 says it's a new 3-year agreement for the Avance employees. Members voted 90% in favor of it today. A strike mandate was issued on February 25th. Avance is a Michigan-based company with a factory on Sprucewood Avenue here in Windsor. Today is March 14th, a day dedicated to celebrating a unique number, 3.14159 and on, also known as Pi Day. Well, one pizzeria in LaSalle with an extremely fitting name is serving up slices today, and they're doing it for a good cause. They're using this day to fundraise for a little girl in our community with epilepsy.
So today's Pi Day, March 14th. Last year was our 5-year anniversary. I wanted to do something extra special. We had a whole fundraiser outside with the chess community, and so this year we picked Ava's charity.
I'm Ava, and I'm the founder of Ava's Fight Against Epilepsy. I had my first seizure when I was 2, and I started fundraising when I was around 5 years old.
She seizes all night in her sleep, and then she also has 2 different kinds during the day. But despite all of that, she has kind of made it her mission to fundraise for Epilepsy Southwestern Ontario to help other kids just like her.
So Ava's here helping out. I think she's trying to get some free fries. We haven't figured it out yet how we're going to pay her today. But we're raising money for her all week, including today, Pi Day. So today, like I said, we're doing 20% off large pizzas for our customers. But on top of that, the entire week of March break, we're donating 5% of our total sales for her charity.
6 of the biggest for-profit long-term care providers in this province are facing class action lawsuits for gross negligence during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. An Ontario court has certified the class actions, which means the cases can now proceed. Our senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley, has the story.
Spring of 2020, COVID-19 had brought lockdowns to Ontario, and the pandemic was hitting some long-term care homes so hard that the military was called in to help. By the time the COVID vaccination campaign rolled out a year later, nearly 4,000 long-term care residents had died, and those deaths happened disproportionately in for-profit homes.
Massive, widespread, often preventable negligence that resulted in far too many unnecessary deaths and just trauma that will live with these families for the rest of their lives.
The claim of negligence will now be tested in court. The Ontario Superior Court has certified class action lawsuits against 6 of the major long-term care chains. They ran homes where many hundreds of residents died.
There are many homes in Ontario that didn't have a problem, and but these were the worst offenders from our perspective. We allege that their conduct fell far below any reasonable standard.
Teresa Pugliese is one of the victims whose story is driving the lawsuits. She died of COVID in May of 2020 after another resident in her shared room caught the virus.
So many people on that floor, on the 3rd floor of the Chartwell home, died, and we believed not proper steps were taken.
CBC News contacted all 6 chains facing the class action lawsuit for comment. Most declined because the case is still before the courts. A spokesperson for Chartwell said the claim does not have any merit and the company intends to vigorously defend itself. One of the lead lawyers representing families calls certification of the class action a big deal.
These are milestone events that you have only one shot at getting the case certified. And in this case, we were successful.
Any step closer to accountability and justice is a step in the right direction.
The court declined to greenlight separate class actions against municipally run and independent homes, saying the cases didn't meet the legal bar. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
Now to the latest on the measles outbreak. The province has officially seen more cases than in all of last year. 2 new cases, one in Simcoe County, the other in Hamilton, makes it 8 confirmed cases so far in 2024. The CBC's Tyler Cheese has more.
Make sure that your vaccinations are up to date.
Ontario's health minister says public health units across the province are focused on getting people, especially children, vaccinated for measles.
We do have sufficient supply. We've actually procured additional vaccines if needed.
The Muskoka-Simcoe District Health Unit confirmed 1 new case, listing areas of Cookstown, Alliston, Thornton, Angus, and Collingwood as locations where the public may have been exposed.
We have been advising members of the public in general, healthcare providers who provide care for their patients, children attending school for whom we do not have records of being current in their immunization.
A list of specific locations can be found on the Simcoe-Muskoka Health Unit's website. Meanwhile, Hamilton Public Health Services has confirmed another case and says it was likely contracted on a trip abroad. Pearson Airport is among the possible exposure locations, raising concerns during the busy March break travel period. A spokesperson for the Greater Toronto Airports Authority says Pearson Airport is working closely with public health units and regularly disinfecting high-touch surfaces throughout the terminals. But infectious disease experts say even if travelers have been on a flight later flagged for possible exposure, they shouldn't panic.
You don't know how far you might have been from the case, and maybe from the ventilation point of view, they would consider that you probably have a very low risk.
There are also some extra precautions passengers can take.
This is an airborne virus, so the N95 mask would be best for providing protection. And additionally, if you can try to stay in well-ventilated or filtrated areas, that will also reduce the risk.
But ultimately, he says the best precaution is to make sure you're fully vaccinated.
I think the main thing is for people to be aware of their vaccination status, to make sure, check their vaccination records to make sure they've had the 2 doses that they need for good protection.
The measles vaccine can be provided at any healthcare provider's office or at some public health clinics. Tyler Cheese, CBC News, Toronto.
There are still 102 elementary students in our region suspended from school because of incomplete immunization records. Suspension started more than a week ago. That's according to the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit. Once the records are updated, suspensions will be lifted and students can return to school. Parents can also get a valid medical exemption and update those records. Mandatory vaccines include polio, mumps and measles, rubella, and chickenpox. CBC News recently investigated reports about pharmacists at Shoppers Drug Mart facing pressures to bill for medication reviews. Pharmacists go over prescriptions with patients, and then the province is billed for the service. The pharmacy chain's president denied setting targets for staff to bill, but internal records show it does. CBC's Angelina King has more.
Current and former Shoppers Drug Mart pharmacy owners are speaking out. Their issue? This comment.
So we don't have targets or any other kind of element like that.
The president of the company firmly denying accusations of targets for billable medication reviews just last month. But more than a dozen current and former Shoppers pharmacists have told us a very different story.
It was really disturbing to us as associate owners to hear that.
CBC News isn't identifying the pharmacists because they fear reprisal for speaking out. We aren't using their real voices either.
I was very angry because this is not the truth.
He knows full well that they're in place.
But they all had the same thing to say. Shoppers' leadership does pressure them to meet targets, and not just for medication reviews.
We have brought this up many times starting last year, that there shouldn't be any targets or quotas when it comes to professional services.
Most professional services like medication reviews and prescribing for minor ailments are billed to the provincial government. Internal documents from across the country obtained by CBC News show weekly and yearly plans for how much money pharmacies are expected to bring in from professional services and pressure from higher ups to hit those numbers. Like this January email from a district manager stating, "I am writing to express my deep disappointment in our team's performance during the first week of 2024. Despite clear plans and expectations, it is evident that we fell significantly short of our targets. I expect each team member to reflect on the reasons for this deviation from our plans and be prepared for immediate improvement." CBC News requested another interview with the president of Shoppers. We were told he was unavailable and the company stands by his previous remarks. It also said it's reinforcing mandatory training on the appropriate use of pharmacy metrics and how to communicate with pharmacy owners and their teams, and that its role is to help owners by working with them on a yearly plan to deliver professional services. But current and former owners say while they support providing these services, they have zero say in that yearly plan.
It is totally unethical to have targets.
And this issue has caught the attention of Ontario's regulatory body for pharmacists. It says it's working on solutions. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Much different day today than yesterday. Let's see if that forecast has some sunnier, less rainy weather coming up after the break. Parts of Canada, like Essex County, will experience a total solar eclipse on April 8th. And anticipation is increasing ahead of the rare event. The moon will block out the sun for millions of people, but if you want to watch, protective gear is needed. CBC's Sarah Eldaba has more on how to catch a glimpse and stay safe.
As you can hear, I'm very excited. It has been a long time that we prepared.
The planetarium in Montreal has recently given out over 285,000 pairs of glasses to kids in Montreal schools, and they have more to give away at Jean Drapeau Park the day of its eclipse viewing. People will need to wear them when looking directly at the sun, right up until the moment the moon completely covers it. That moment will be a sight to see without glasses.
It happens directly when the moon is exactly at the same diameter of the sun, and you will be able to see the corona of the sun, which is something very extraordinary to see, in fact.
Looking directly at the sun during the partial eclipse without glasses can damage your vision permanently. This is because the light from the sun is so strong it could damage the retina, the lining at the back of the eye responsible for sending images to the brain.
Unfortunately, there is no treatment for any form of damage done to the retina because of the sun. So avoidance is key.
People should make sure their glasses are almost completely opaque and that they don't have any scratches or tears. Experts say it's best to buy glasses that meet the international standard.
It is essential that you have ISO-approved sunglasses that will block all the harmful intensity of the sunlight. Just using your regular sunglasses is by far not enough.
The American Astronomical Society has an extensive list of trusted North American suppliers, and there are more local sources at eclipsequebec.ca. There are also places offering eclipse glasses for free. Montreal libraries, for example, will be giving them out as of March 18th. Sarah Eldaba, CBC News, Montreal.
And speaking of keeping our eyes in the sky, here's some awesome footage of the crescent moon last night. Our video producer Mike Evans recorded this stunning video. The crescent moon marks the start of the holy fasting month of Ramadan for many Muslims around the world. It's also known as the waxing crescent. It's the silver sliver that shines when the moon mostly faces away from Earth. That's different from the waning crescent, where the moon is nearly all black and the thin curve we see is on the opposite side. Well, Victor Paulo is here now with our weather forecast.
Well, Meg, how about that wet day we had today in Windsor? Much different than almost the summer-esque conditions we've had all week. Now, we are expecting that rain to taper off, but as we do look ahead as to what else we're going to be expecting for this week, well, take a look and wait for our 3- and 5-day forecast. Now, taking a look at daytime highs, well, tomorrow's going to be a day where, well, it's a high of 11 degrees, and we're expecting that to be kind of the consistent theme over the next couple of days. Overnight tonight, we are still expecting a bit of rain in Windsor. It's supposed to be 9 degrees, and we see the majority of southwestern Ontario will be experiencing a lot of that rain. Areas such as from Sarnia all the way to London will be receiving a little bit more than areas such as Chatham-Kent and Leamington as well. Now, here's what we're looking at when it comes to rainfall totals. We're expecting to receive closer to 15 to 20 millimeters by the time all of the rain is said and done this weekend for Windsor. But tomorrow, we're also expecting the daytime temperatures to, as we talked about, remain steady closer to around 11 degrees as it was today. Now, here's what it looks like to that outlook for the rain, when and where it's going to be falling. Right around overnight tonight, we should be getting a bit of a period of break from all of that rain. As we start our day Friday, it's going to be some increased cloud cover. Now, that increased cloud cover is going to lead to some more scattered showers, but it's not going to be a really big system that passed through like earlier today. Now, one thing we can also note when we're looking at our Saturday is going to be a day where it will be, again, more increased cloud cover. Quick look at our 3- and 5-day forecast. You will be having sunny periods on Friday and Saturday, but we are seeing some flurries which will be passing by when it comes to Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And associated to those flurries as well, you're seeing cooler temperatures. Those overnight lows go from a low of around 0 degrees on Friday to, well, -4 on Sunday, and it's looking at -4 on Monday and Tuesday as well. Now, we hope you all stay warm, Windsor. Hope you all stay dry. The good news is Friday is going to be a day where we can wrap up March break with more milder conditions. But hey, how about that summer-like March break we've had so far? Hope you all have yourselves a great night and stay dry. And over to you.
Thanks so much for that, Victor. Scientists in South Korea have created a new hybrid food they say will be affordable and better on the environment. We tell you all about beef rice coming up. The federal government says it ordered a national security review of the popular app TikTok last September. The review was prompted by the company's plan to expand business in Canada. Ottawa says it's not related to recent efforts by U.S. lawmakers to ban the popular social media platform. There are questions about TikTok's parent company and its ties to the Chinese government. Last year, Canada banned the app from government-issued devices due to security concerns. The Federal Privacy Commissioner is also investigating the company's collection and use of personal information. South Korean scientists say they've made a major step towards creating a sustainable and affordable source of protein, and let's just say the method is quite different. Researchers in South Korea have managed to grow beef cells in rice grains. The pinkish hybrid beef rice has a much lower carbon footprint than farmed cattle meat. It's said to have a beefy flavor and a slight buttery, creamy taste. With 18% animal-based protein, the rice is also rich in essential amino acids. While it may not replace actual beef anytime soon, they say it's eco-friendly and easier on the wallets. The supersonic Concorde jet may no longer be soaring the skies, but one of them took a trip today to appear in New York City. The retired aircraft was transported by barge back to the Intrepid Museum after a major 7-month restoration. This particular Concorde holds the record for the fastest transatlantic crossing by a passenger plane. 2 hours and 52 minutes from London's Heathrow Airport to JFK. The iconic needle-nose aircraft is the only supersonic commercial jet that ever flew. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.